Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We especially want to thank all of our friends who are watching who've been a part of the Bank of America Institute. Now, we put a link in the chat where you can learn more about the Bank of America Institute and where you can sign up and get some nice info there. So, well, let's get right into it. We're talking Workshop Your Network, cultivating mentors, peers, and mentees in business. Our goal is to help you take away three things today. Clear understanding of how to add value to and achieve value from every relationship you establish. We'll go through an intention-setting exercise for identifying who should be in your entrepreneurial trifecta tribe ecosystem. So those three things we were talking about before: mentors, peers, and mentees, and actionable strategies and techniques to expand your tribe online and in person. Now, this is a highly interactive workshop, so we'll be going on a journey together that starts with addressing our mindset about what are some values we have to offer others in ways that can be beneficial to both business and professional relationships. We'll also identify pressing needs in our business and then identify who can assist us. Now, some administrative stuff. This is being recorded and will be available at the same URL immediately following. So if you need to step out, you can come back and watch it. But we also want to hear from you as well. So go ahead and submit your questions in that chat, and we'll be filling those in throughout our conversation and definitely getting those answered as well. You can connect with us both online as well on our LinkedIn pages. Now, those will be put in the chat, so Chris can go right ahead and put those in the chat there. Make sure to connect with us, and those will be put back in kind of towards the end of our conversation today. But let's get to the reason we're all here. Michelle Talbert is a relationships marketing strategist and consultant. She curates safe spaces for entrepreneurs and corporate clients to excel in business by creating mutually beneficial, ethical relationships. Now, she's been featured in Forbes, The Washington Post, and other major publications. She founded Her Power Moves, a national community of women entrepreneurs who come together to connect, collaborate, create cash flow unapologetically. Now, in January 2020, Michelle founded Her Power Space, a woman-forward, men-welcoming boutique co-working space near Fort Lauderdale. And here's just a quick video about that.
1, 2, 3.
If someone told me that 2020 would have been 2020 in 2019, well, first of all, you really don't have a choice but to go through it, right? I took a bet and a gamble on me, and I took a bet and a gamble on our community, and I still think it was right.
Her Power Space has challenged me and exposed me to so many opportunities in 2020 as a business owner, and a side hustler, as Michelle calls it.
I gave her where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. And she said, here's everything I have to help you get to that point.
Now, Michelle graduated from Cornell University and holds a law degree from UPenn with a business certificate from Wharton. Now, in June 2021, Michelle received a certificate in women's entrepreneurship here from Cornell. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today for our conversation.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. I am so excited to be here. And before we get started, literally 2 seconds before you introduced me, I'm in South Florida. Our power just went out, and I got a text saying the texts are on site. So thank goodness for backup batteries on laptops and ring lights. So this will be an interesting candlelight conversation. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. I'll let you take it over.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, hopefully you can see me. We are on backup power here, and I'm just so excited to be here. My name, as Nicholas said, is Michelle Talbert, and I am here to talk with you about building your trifecta tribe of mentors, peers, and mentees. But first, I broadcast from a very specific radio station, and that is WIIFM. So that means raise your hand, obviously virtually, if you have a question, but also what's in it for me, AKA you. I have created a bonus document that you'll get at the end, but if you want to download it, you can go to that URL right now and fill it out. It is a worksheet that I created years ago. You probably can't see this very well, but you can see a little bit on the screen. It's a worksheet I created probably 6 years ago because I was fed up with being on webinars and going to conferences and then wondering, What was my motivation for being here? Why did I come? Am I getting the value? So this is a worksheet that you can fill out as we go along. You can keep notes. You can talk about what your promise is, why you're here, which we're going to get into. We can talk about the promises that Nicholas just mentioned at the top, which we're going to revisit, about what you can learn from being here today. And most importantly, there is a space that gives you 24 hours for you to implement one takeaway from today. And I'm going to check back with you at the end of our talk. Throughout our time together, you will hear me say to you, throw in the chat, that's me, if you hear something that resonates, okay? This is exactly, as Nicholas said, highly interactive. I want to hear from you. I am appreciative that you are here to hear from me. And we're going to come right out of the gate. And the pun was intended because we're going to start with the definition of a trifecta. A trifecta is the ability to call the first, second, and third, typically horse, in a race in the order. That's a huge win, right? So we're starting by winning. And your tribe is literally your peers. Let there be light. Your tribe is your peers, your people. This is your community. So we are putting together your winning peeps. That's what we're working on. Is anybody, that me, you're here to get together with your winning peeps? You may have heard the quote, the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard that. A 2 if this is the first time you've ever heard it. I would love to hear that. So Nicholas, if you see some 1s and 2s, let me know. 1 if you've heard this proverb, 2 if not, and then I'm gonna keep going. So Nicholas, just let me know if you see folks that have heard it before. And the reason that I bring this up at the beginning of our conversation is because I have a little tweak to it. I actually don't think that's how it should go. Basically, what this proverb says is that, yes, I can get somewhere really fast because it's just me and I'm really agile, right? But if I want to go the distance, I need to have my squad with me. Here's my take on that. If you want to go farther, faster, go with your tribe. That's how we win. Right? And Jim Rohn has a great quote, success leaves clues. So when you go with the right others, you don't just go farther, you go there quicker because success leaves the clues and they can bring us along with them, right? That's why we're here, hopefully. Did we have any 1s and 2s? Have people heard of that before?
We do. We actually have a nice mix. We got Dawn, who is a 1. We got Angel, who's a 2. So we got a nice mix of 1s and 2s. But I like that. Like a nice change.
I love it. I love it. So drop in the chat 1 if you're here looking for a mentor. 2 if you're looking for a mentee. 3 if it's a peer. And just say, that's me if it's all of the above. Okay? Now, I'm going to put you to work before I put myself to work. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
I want to know, are you ready to stretch? Yes, that's me, ready to stretch. Okay. We're going to show a little video that tells a little story about one of my favorite characters, who is Dash from the movie The Incredibles. And he is a super fast superhero who can't let anybody know how fast he is, and all Dash wants to do is run. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it already, this is the final scene, and this is Dash in a race with his parents on the sideline.
Give up! Make it close! 6 seconds! 12 seconds!
Right. Yeah. So again, are you ready to stretch, right? Because there are people on the sidelines that are saying, just come in a close.
Looks like we just lost.
What'd you say, Nicholas?
Here we go. We just lost you, Michelle, real quick. But we did get some audience feedback in just for that quick time you were out. We did get some feedback in. We got a lot of mentors and a lot of mentees, but not too many peers. So people are still answering. So we got a bunch of ones, bunch of threes, not too many twos yet, but hopefully some twos start rolling.
Okay, great. Thank you. So did you get to watch the video, though? The video went through okay?
Yes, I did.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So are you ready to stretch? If you are seated, that's fine to stay seated. If you want to stand up and let the blood kind of pump through your system, I'm going to ask you, honor system, raise your hands above your head. Nicholas, I can see you not doing it, by the way. Okay, thank you. Okay, so are your hands raised as high as they can go?
I think so.
All right, now go a little further. Everybody goes a little further. What happened? I just asked you, are they up as high as you can go, right? That's what many of us do. We end up holding back that little bit. There's a little something left there. I would love to know, did you have more to go? That's me. Or did you go as far as you could the first time? Feel free to drop that in the chat and Nicholas will let me know. This is about beginning with intention. So, what does success look like for you for our time together? That's why I asked. So many of you are here looking for mentors and mentees, right, to take you along your journey. Are you mainly entrepreneur? Let me know if your entrepreneur is a 1, and if you are in corporate, that's a 2, okay? While you're doing that, I'm going to tell you my 3 promises to you. My goal today with our time together is to take you from isolation and confusion to building community and having confidence, right? You're going to set your course by having a clear intention of what it is that you need, and you're going to identify what makes you unique and what you have to offer. And then we're going to implement strategies that you can walk out of here. And even if you're in the chat, look, I'm not one of those people like at the front of the room that says, don't talk on your phone. Tweet, text, share out good information and connect with others in the chat if you're able. Okay. Before we get started with the mentorship, I wanted you to stretch. Now I want you to think a little deeper.
Yeah. And look at you today, man.
Yeah. And I just think that's really critical, right? And it's like, because everybody has dreams. And as much as you want to be able to listen a little bit, because somebody's going to give you a gem, but nobody knows but you. You can't get advice on what you should do with your life, right? Nobody knows what you are. Like even sometimes you don't really even know what you are. You got to take your shot. And it's like, as much as you want people to agree and you want the people around you to be supporting your dreams and all, it's not going to be like that all the time. You got to do it alone. And people will help you, and when you get the ball rolling, people will jump on. But if you don't believe, nobody else is going to believe. People come along because your belief is so insane, that your belief is so strong that makes people be like, yo, this crazy asshole. He might have something. He might have something. You ass a little funny. You ass a little funny. Following your dreams is a lonely, solitary, scary, dangerous pursuit. You can't wait for somebody to think you can do it. And it's like, because they don't think you can do nothing they can't do.
Exactly, bingo.
Right? You know what I mean? It's like, it's a lonely, scary, dangerous pursuit. And you got to be willing to risk everything to become that seed of what you believe is in there. You got to be fearless. You got to be relentless.
And look at you today, man.
So with that being said, I am here to be fearless with you, to be relentless with you, and to have one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood history share with you that this is not easy, that it's scary, that it's lonely pursuing your dreams, whether you're an entrepreneur in corporate or any other dreams that you have outside of the professional realm. It will require buckling down, but it will also require that while you're here looking for a mentor, you know thyself. Right? Because many of us look to people to kind of give us that blueprint or to help us along in a way that we're going to follow their path. Like I said, success leaves clues. But please, please, please maintain that part of yourself who knows who you are on the inside. Because there may come people along the way who will try to talk you out of it or who just don't even understand the vision. It was given to you. Right? So in the chat, Nicholas, do we have folks who say they're entrepreneur, corporate, ones and twos? How's it looking?
We do. We actually got a wide range. So we got a few people who are entrepreneurs. We got a few people who are corporate. We actually got one person who said 3 they were in government. So nice little mix there.
There you go. I appreciate that. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so Nicholas gave you a little bit about my background. I graduated from high school at 17, went straight out and got that good government job in the federal government. So I'm with you there, Mr. or Ms. Government person. I understand that life. I then started going to community college at night. I got married, had my son when I was 19, my daughter when I was 20, and by 22, I was a divorced single mom, right? So I'm working as an admin, a secretary in those days, during the day, going to school, one class at a time at community college, raising these 2 amazing kids. And then I get this letter from Cornell that says, hey, we see you're doing really great at community college. Why don't you come on up to Ithaca? I'm like, what? I'm on my way, right? So after 3 years of studying abroad, et cetera, with my children, we lived on campus in Ithaca at Cornell. It's a great school. Definitely love Cornell. And that is my 10-year-old at the time, drying my eyes, holding my tassel while I boo-hooed on graduation day in 2000. I then went straight into law school at University of Pennsylvania and then went to corporate practice in Washington, D.C., right? That's them now. While I was working in corporate America as an attorney in DC, I got married again, and then that was a divorce situation, and I co-authored a book while practicing law called Don't Do What We Did, all about dating online after 40, after divorce, and it was self-published, and this is 2011. And self-published, any authors who are published or yet to be published authors who are watching, when you self-publish, right, you're responsible for the marketing. And these days, you're responsible for the marketing regardless who publishes you. And I hit Twitter with a vengeance to share our story. Right? I had no background in social media until this moment. And with that, one of the editors from Ebony magazine, like that Ebony magazine from my grandmother's coffee table, my mother's coffee table, my coffee table, asked, could they feature us in Ebony from my social media activities? I was hooked, right? A social media maven was born. And from there, I've had opportunity to be invited to President Obama's White House to cover the State of the Union address, been featured in a bunch of places. But the most important part was that I took our community along with me because I love social media so much, I would share wherever I was. And that's when women started inboxing me and saying, Michelle, I would like to have opportunities. How do I do this? And I realized that instead of answering them in a one-off situation, I could create a community, a podcast, a Facebook group to enable women to get the tools that they need to achieve their goals. And so Her Power Moves was born. And as Nicholas shared, in January 2020, I opened my first brick and mortar business, Her Power Space, here in Broward County, Florida. That is a place where it houses our community, but it enables our local business owners who are small micro businesses to be able to look big because we have call center and mail services and all of that. And my goal was to have this place that we could shine, right? Where we could get away from isolation, right? And get to community and resources. And I opened in January 2020. So what does that mean, right? How'd your 2020 go? Opening a brick and mortar space 3 months before an entire shutdown that is based on people coming together. It's a very interesting prospect, but more on that in a minute. I just want to share a quick video.
Forward, we were basically sold out heading into April. And March 31st, I officially closed the doors. There were people during the pandemic, especially in early April, who would reach out to me and say, Michelle, what's your Cash App? Let me just sow a seed. I know that this isn't an easy time for you. Similarly, there were people who made it possible for me to get out of bed. When the pandemic first hit, I was in the fetal position in my bed, like, what have I done? What am I going to do? And I would always say the pandemic is global, but it feels personal. And I think for each of us, we were impacted in different ways, right? And so for me to be able to say, how can I serve our community? And for our community to say, we can't let Michelle fail, it was like we fed off of each other and really made it possible for all of us to kind of continue to rise forward. We were basically.
So I share that video because it is but for the grace of our community that this Her Power space is still open here in 2021. And it is about earning trust. Seth Godin, earn trust, earn trust, earn trust. Then you can worry about the rest later. So that is why we're talking about mutually beneficial, ethical relationships. And because of those, I was able to pivot and continue to serve our community. But it all began with intention and how it was we were going to now move forward. And so I would love to hear from you. What relationships do you need to create to achieve your next level, right? And I'm going to challenge you beyond just thinking about a mentor or a mentee, but to also incorporate peers. And I'll get back to why. I don't know how your journeys look, but definitely mine does not look like that. It's more like this, right? And the way we go. I went to law school and college so that I could get away from bad bosses, and I wanted to have a door to close, right? But you are here with me, so you're going to do better because now you'll know better. And we have a map, and that is a framework. So we're going to whiteboard. Are there any questions before I go to whiteboarding?
No questions just yet, but we want to remind folks that if you have any questions, please keep those coming in. We'll be answering those throughout.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you a framework that is going to be something that you can use for all relationships that you enter into. And then after the framework, we're going to apply it specifically to mentors, mentees, and peers. Okay? So here we go. All right, and you will get a legible copy of this on the very next slide. Okay, so hopefully you can see this, right? I want to start by saying that we will have our mentees. This is us happy in the middle. We're going to have mentors, mentees, and peers, okay? And so this is the beginning of our trifecta tribe. We start with intention. I don't know if you've seen, I flashed that on the screen a number of times. Our intention, what is it that we are trying to achieve? And then we're going to look at our identity, you know, that age-old question, who are you, right? And then we're going to implement. So we'll have very specific strategies and tools to implement to be able to achieve our goals. Okay. First, you're going with intention to define your desires. And this is a moment for you not to edit. This is a moment to stretch. This is a moment not to be dashed with his parents on the sideline, right? This is a moment to completely list, what is it that I need right now to get to my next level, right? Then we come back and we edit by pruning our options, right? So whittle it down. What are the top 3 things, right? And then sit with that for a while. And then that one thing that you need is your ask. Identify one ask at a time, right? Then, oh, I already drew that. Then what we're going to do under the identity is identify your value, okay? What is it that makes you special? And trust me, there are things that make you special. You're gonna find your folks. So now that you know what you need, where are the people who have that? And then you're gonna part the seas, you're gonna stand apart. You're gonna make sure that they notice you. And then when we get to implementation, now that you found your folks, go where they are. So meet them where they are, okay? Parting the seas means getting noticed, being different. As soon as you show up in a non-spammy way, you've already done 80% of the lift, okay? When you show up to say, how may I be of value, people will notice. And then finally, you're going to ask. And what I love to say here, right? Because we started with your ask, we identified it. Now we've gone through the steps for how you're going to ask. And the way that you're going to ask is by answering, because you've created this mutually beneficial relationship, they're going to say, hey, Nicholas, how may I add value to you? And your ask becomes your answer, okay? So we are setting our intention. We are identifying what our value is. And then we are implementing steps within social media and interacting with people in person to begin to create these relationships, okay? So I'm gonna move off of this slide to start looking through the piece that always comes up. How do I know I'm unique? What makes me valuable, right? And this is a really quick worksheet that's gonna be sent to you at the end. You'll be able to download it, that you can go through and ask yourself these questions, and they'll get you started. There's something called an Attagirl file or Attaboy file. When people give you compliments, put that in a file, put that in a folder. So that's personally, right? And then if you're a business owner, similarly, you create value for the marketplace. And this I actually got from my eCornell course for women's entrepreneurship, and I'm using it now so you can work through that. Again, these will also be in the bonus workbook that you will receive. We're busy, right? We need mentors. Some of you will soon need peers. And so we're gonna work through how do we now use this framework to achieve those relationships, right? One of the pieces is to think about your mentor, not as a lifelong journey necessarily, but possibly for one finite matter at a time. I actually have a sales mentor. I needed sales help at the top of this year, right? So I knew that he could help me with that. We're not even in the same industry. So as you look to who can help you, make sure that you're able to be a good mentee, which means being able to receive criticism, right? Which means being able to get feedback and knowing yourself, as I said at the top, with Will Smith, accepting yourself, and then not taking it so personally. Forget yourself, right? When it comes to mentees, now you're in the mentor space. You are the mentor. You are helping people along their journey. When they come to you, when potential mentees come to me, I ask them, what do you need my help with? Not, you seem successful. No, what is it that you need specifically? And I will send them away and they have to come back to me to report back, because then I get to now define, am I the right person? Look at your time, your level of expertise. Do you even like the person, right? That matters. How will you communicate? You know, sometimes there's a generational gap and they want to text and you're like, no, we're going to sit down and have coffee. Literally, my mentor, my sales mentor comes to the space and we have coffee, right? Totally fine. And then are you available so that you can set their expectations and that you can set expectations for them to follow as well? These are also applicable, obviously, for being a mentee, right? And choosing the right mentor for you. Peers. Peers are really accountability buddies. They're people who can help us, who can partner with us, who are going through that struggle with us. They may be in a different industry, but they understand where we are and we can completely be naked in front of them and share what's going on. You want to make sure that there's alignment, that there's a balance of value. Do they have something to offer you? You've gone through what you know you need and what you have. And using this framework, you can understand, is there goal alignment? How will you communicate? Frequency, the hard conversation in any of these cases. Because now you've set your expectation. If it is not being met, cut your losses and move on. Which leads me to the introvert's bonus. The introvert's bonus is very similar. For folks, and I don't know if we have any introverts saying that in the that's me category, you want to plan your success. Planning is beneficial when you're an introvert so that you can prepare appropriately to interact and do some peopling. And you can say, I know that Michelle is speaking today. I really want to make a connection with her. I know that Nicholas is going to have a booth out in the expo area. I really want to make a beeline to him. And once you do those two things, if you start to feel like your energy is being drained, leave. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't go to the car. Leave. Give yourself grace and leave, because you've actually been successful. And there's nothing worse than staying somewhere that you don't want to be. So finally, some things to think about outside of the box. Virtual mentorship, which obviously is, we're in a virtual world, right? Mastermind groups. These are groups, accountability groups. Diversity. Diversity is key because it is not just diversity based on race or gender. It is diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of industry. Like I said, my sales mentor is in logistics, but he knows sales. So don't only look for people who are walking the full path that you want to walk. Look for people who are successful or who could use your expertise to help them along their journey in that moment. For a finite period of time is also fine, right? That was a lot of information. I'm from New York and I talk really fast. So Nicholas is like, oh my God. I'm feeling like this.
No, it was great. It was great. I wanted to kind of get to some of our questions. So they actually keep coming in, and I want to remind folks, continue to put those questions in, and we'll get them answered as quickly as we can. So I really actually want to ask you, how did you come up with this idea of, the trifecta tribe ecosystem, not just being a mentor and a mentee, but also a peer? How did you, kind of come up with this idea?
Yeah, absolutely, because it actually grew organically, much like that crazy riding into the weeds, right, for me, in that I noticed along my journey, I had an incredible mentor at Cornell. He looked nothing like me. He was like in Lyndon Johnson's administration. But all along my journey, there were people who would show up for a moment in time to help me along that part of my journey. And over the years, 20 plus years now, I realized, hey, I can't be the only one who doesn't need this generic type of help. And so I began teaching and talking with folks and realizing that people might be stuck in just one area, but because of our thinking about what a mentor or mentee is, we have this very broad definition. And so I began helping people by saying, look, if you have this ecosystem in place, you're unstoppable.
And I think it's interesting. One of the things you mentioned was, when we're searching for these three, having diversity, when a lot of us think diversity, maybe we think of race or something, but I think it's an interesting point when you mention diversity, not just as a racial thing, but also as a business standpoint, like you mentioned a different, I think you mentioned sales before, can you kind of speak about what the importance of having the different types of diversity when it comes to mentorship means and what it can do for somebody who might be trying to start a business or, trying to improve their lives?
Absolutely. And, when I was practicing law, I'm a corporate attorney. So mergers, acquisitions, quote unquote, big deals. But I also had mentees who wanted to be public interest attorneys. Right? But I've had enough life experience to be able to help them with that part of their journey. So they may look at me and say, well, she's a corporate attorney. What does she know about helping people? That's not what they do, right? But the reality is because we would have a conversation, I could say, hey, guess what? I do know something about that and I can help you along the path. And so I think that that's really important, is to keep your options open, whether it's your career, business, or anything else that you want to achieve. You know, Nicholas, you've traveled to another country that I might want to visit. You've gone to Greece, and I say, hey, I want to go to Greece. I want to talk to you, right? So nothing else matters, because you're going to be a person who I can get that great information from and have a successful journey. So that's how I approach. If you want to create relationships thinking outside of your box, think about what you really need and how you can also help someone else. And one thing that I say, just as an add-on, is that you have something that even Oprah Winfrey needs. Because if Oprah Winfrey came to Ithaca and needed a ride to the Ithaca airport, I think you'd volunteer, right? And she's a billionaire. And you
It's Oprah, of course. Oprah, if you're watching, you need a ride, I got you. Just fly right into Ithaca, hit me up on my cell. So I'm really interested to learn, what's that first step for people, or what's that first move that people can make to establish their ecosystem?
Absolutely. The intention setting, right, is key. You have to have a very specific ask, because if you've ever been approached by someone who is kind of murky and it's kind of like, oh, let's connect, let's link, let's build. What does that mean? No, let's go to lunch because I actually have a question about how to open a co-working space. But you can only get to that place if you're very clear about what it is that you need. Right? And we have loads of needs. That's why I say start with the big list, but whittle it down and see what matters the most. And when you start with intention, then you begin to identify people who are aligned. And then, because you've done the work in terms of identifying what you have to offer, whether it's that ride to Oprah to the airport, helping someone with social media, you don't know what that could be, then you can come together and there's the mutual benefit to the relationship. You're coming to say, hey, I saw you needed something. Sending someone an article that you meet at an event or that you see is posting about a particular topic keeps you top of mind, because again, you're parting the seas, you're getting noticed, you're doing something differently than most people will do in this age of kind of take. So that's the first step. Identify what you need, and then identify how you can add value to someone else, and then begin to find those people.
And we actually just got a very, very great follow-up question from Shreya. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. They ask, is there a great program or group where one can look for mentors from other industries?
Absolutely. So you're saying industries, other industries. I know that on the corporate side of things, you can look within your industry and see, different associations and related associations. So if you have expos and things like that, see who shows up, who's at the tables that aren't maybe directly in your industry, but they're complementary. So that's a good place to begin. And then they can refer you outside of their network. If you're an entrepreneur, there are places like SCORE, which are it's a nonprofit organization with free mentorship from retired executives that help business owners. There are, different mentor organizations that you can find online. And that's why I say some are paid, some are free. So think outside the box about when you're clear about what you need, then you know where the value is as well. Hopefully that answered your question.
It does, and we want to thank you for that question. And, with that space, what's that like to have seen that kind of feedback between, the different groups, between the mentees, the mentors, the peers? What's that like to see?
Well, what I think happens is that once people begin to think outside of the box, like I said, I asked my sales mentor to be my sales mentor. He's like, I don't have a co-working space. What are you talking about? He's all gruff, right? And I said, but you know how to sell stuff. And he said, you're right about that. Okay. So maybe you have to point out to them why you believe that it is that they have the value that you need. And that's where you can then grow from there. Sometimes it takes a little bit of nudge, to show up and say, hey, I'm asking you for your time, right? So what is the value that I can give in exchange? And why is it that I believe that you're the right person for me at this point in my journey? And I do want to say one thing about peers, because I know I said it really quickly and people are like, I don't need a peer. It's really important to think through how having someone in your corner who maybe you set up a monthly, like, did you send that document out? Did you have that ask for increased salary somebody who you can really have a safe space with, that's along the journey with you, can really help you think outside of sort of where the mentor is leading you and the mentee you're leading, but to just kind of commiserate and also to, as we say, big up, to give each other a lot of, kudos when you're having wins. And
I just have one more question before we get back to your great presentation there. This is actually from Susan. She asked, I have a problem with self-censorship. So she's blunt and snarky, it seems. Like, how do I work that into positive benefits working towards my goal?
So when you say self-censorship, are you saying that you hold yourself back? You're feeling introverted? I just want to make sure when you say censoring yourself, what that really means, if you don't mind maybe dropping a little bit of additional info there. But if it is...
It seems like maybe Susan's saying she can sometimes come across as maybe blunt or snarky.
Okay, so that's why I wasn't sure, because that's me. Okay, so that's me.
Please.
Right? There is a saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. Let's be real, your vibe does attract your tribe, which is why I said on the slide, do you really like the person? Look, we're going to connect with people who we can gel with in whatever sphere that is. So if you are known to drop certain words at certain times, whether opportune or not, then find folks who are like that. Trust me, they exist. But really, it's a vibe, it's a feeling. Don't worry so much about how you show up. If that's you showing up authentically, then you're going to pull to you. People are going to be drawn to you who are aligned with your authenticity, right? So don't worry about that piece of it. Focus on giving value. Don't focus so inward. The best advice I ever received is no one thinks about you as much as you think about you. So if you say something that upsets someone, that's kind of on them. It's not for you to kind of aside from if you're just rude, right? But that's a different story. I'm talking about showing up authentically who you are, and that's okay. Don't be so in your head that you can't give the value. Focus outward, less inward.
Cool. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for those questions. And let's keep these slides going.
Okay, great. So I want to come back to the beginning. If folks have any questions, this is Ashley. If there are any questions about either, setting your course and having a clear intention about what it is that you need, and then identifying what makes you unique, right? And what it is that you have to offer. And I just want to remind you that I know I went really quickly. I do have the information for you to go through those worksheets on your own time, and definitely hope you can implement those strategies today. I love to stay connected to people. And the bonus link is right there. If you go to herpowermoves.com/bonus, there is actually a video that I put together that answers 50 minutes annotated worth of questions after this presentation, where folks have asked me questions, especially around how do I identify my unique value proposition. So you can literally jump in the video to that part of the video that's most helpful to you. And then there's also a downloadable workbook that includes the framework. It includes the worksheets. It includes your unique value proposition, both from an individual perspective and an entrepreneurial perspective. And there's a 5-day planner where you can go through and write down your thoughts as you're going through this. It's completely free. You just go there, everything is there. If you have any questions, all of my contact information is also here as well. I'm just really excited because I think when we all interact from a very giving space, from a space of how can I help you, your ask is always going to be your answer. And the world is going to be a better place. And we all win is my motto. And I really believe that.
All right, great. So I'd like to actually ask a really, really great follow-up. We just actually got a question in from Susan. She asks, are you accepting virtual mentees?
I am.
So it's a good thing. So Susan, you got to send us your LinkedIn and we'll see if we can connect. That's perfect.
And I'm going to hold you accountable, Susan.
So we're going to have a lookout for you, Susan. Thank you so much for the question.
I love that question.
We really appreciate it. So A really interesting question I'd like to actually ask you is there, of the three trifectas, is there one thing that you find that's maybe more difficult to come by? Maybe is it, maybe trying to find a peer, or maybe trying to find a mentor, maybe trying to find a mentee? Do you find it easier when, maybe people reach out to you, or do you find it harder for, somebody who might be an introvert to reach out to somebody else and, just say, hey, how can you help me? Is there one that you find that's more difficult maybe for people than others?
Well, for introverts, and I'm a self-proclaimed ambivert, right? So I can go either way. And there are times when I'm more introverted and other times when I'm more extroverted. People think I'm an extrovert, but after this, I will be in a field position sucking my thumb. Don't worry. There's a lot of peopling, right? What I find is that most people don't think about being a mentor until they have reached some point in the future that they feel is success. Right. So I don't want to be a mentor until I've had a 6-figure year. I don't want to be a mentor until I've read the Bible backwards and forwards in a year. Right. We don't think that we are capable or have the knowledge or expertise to be a mentor until typically sometime in the future. And I think that's the biggest challenge for many of us, because we're typically very high achieving folks who think that we're underachievers. And so there is someone, I promise you, anyone who is watching me in this moment, whenever you're watching, there is someone who wants to be where you are. And reaching back is so important, even to your own success. They often say, if you really want to understand something, teach it. By being a mentor, you position yourself in a way that helps you solidify your particular knowledge, expertise, expand your network, but it pours into someone else who would give their left foot to be where you are today, not 6 months from now or 6 years from now, today. With all your messiness and all your everything that's going on in the background, trust me, there is value that you have. And I think that for many people, they keep that part of their life kind of not helping other people in a very formal way because they don't think they have much to offer yet.
Interesting. And just a quick follow-up. How can understanding our own trifecta ecosystem help us overcome some of our pressing needs from a business perspective?
I think what's important is that to understand that it's fluid. Sometimes you can have the conversation at the beginning of a relationship where you say, look, we're going to do this for 6 months. I really need an intensive focus on becoming the next tier, a GS14, right? The next tier in my career. And I want you to help me get there and help me strategize the best way to do that. So you can start with things being very finite from the beginning. And so everyone's expectation is met. Or you can say, hey, I really need someone who every Monday checks in to make sure that I worked out Sunday, right? One of the greatest books I've read is it's called The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. And she really goes into what motivates us to take action. And there are 4 different tendencies, and she talks through raising children that way, interacting in the workforce that way. But one of the ways that I know personally is I am externally motivated. So Nicholas, if we go to the gym and work out together, number 1, I'm going to go. Number 2, when we leave, you need to give me one of your sneakers, because I know that I'll come back the next day because you need your sneaker, not because I need to work out. And those are things that if you do that kind of self-identification of who am I, it really matters, then you'll know and give yourself grace, right? Because procrastination, external motivation, a lot of these things have gotten negative publicity in society when it's just how we operate. And once we know that, we can really make authentic connections.
And what's the easiest way to, look into ourselves and, like you mentioned, do that self-reflecting? What's kind of the easiest way, or what would you say is the best way to go about doing that?
Really, honestly, a lot of self-education, getting good books. You can start with the book that I just gave you a recommendation for, right? How do I tick? What makes me tick? knowing yourself, know thyself, right, is really a very good first step. Because when you know yourself, who you are, and you know that, hey, I tend to need to be self-censored when I'm in public. Okay, I know that about who I am. And now you apply the framework and say, okay, so what do I need and how do I marry the two? Where can I find people who are going to be accepting of who I am, but also able to provide what it is that I need, and we can then connect from there. So I think it's really introspection, education, understanding ways of thought, love languages. You know, there's a lot of information out there floating around. So start, with a good recommendation and go from there. It's like pulling a little string and the whole thing kind of unravels.
And you brought up an interesting concept earlier, regarding, in-person mentoring and virtual mentoring and mentorship and everything like that, especially given the world we're in now with everything seeming virtual. Can you go a little bit into, virtual mentorship and virtual being a mentee and, virtual peership as compared to being in person? What are some differences you've seen, or, what are some things we can take away?
I think that the only difference really is about technology and understanding people's limitations with regard to technology and where they may excel with regard to technology, and being very clear so that it decreases the opportunity for frustration, right? Because you don't want the technology to frustrate the process. So if it's someone who you need to speak on the phone with, or text, or get on a Zoom, or they don't know what Zoom is, so just let it go, you really need to identify that at the beginning. That's one of the biggest differences with regard to any virtual technology. But in terms of making connections, that's showing up on time. Everything that you would do in person should also be done in a virtual space. Show up on time, let the other person speak, ensure that there's an actual exchange of value, and also check in with yourself and the other person as you're moving along to make sure that both of your reasons for being here is still being met.
And I actually got an interesting question from Greg here. He asks, how do you take that second step? So he says, I got my foot in the door after about 7-ish years as a sole proprietorship, petrified of following up with interested big businesses, and wants me to publicize my work, which I guess he works in the electronic and video game sphere. So do you have any advice for Greg? Let's have another quick question, Michelle. So we actually just got an interesting question from Greg. He asked, how do you take the second step? So he says he got my foot in the door after about 7-ish years as a sole proprietorship, petrified of following up with interested big businesses that want me to publicize my work, which I believe it's some type of electronics or video games rather. Do you have any advice for Greg, Michelle?
Yes, get an accountability buddy. Set exactly what the steps are that you need to do, and tell that person to hold you accountable. You cannot hide when they show up and say, hey, Greg, did you do the thing? Did you post that? Did you send that email? I'm telling you, it works, right? It sounds like you may not be internally driven and may need a little bit of a nudge. So reach out to someone who you feel comfortable with, who you can trust, and say, I need you to hold me accountable. And I know they say accountability is an inside job, but we're going to ask for an accountability buddy to help Greg get this done, because you know that it's what you're supposed to do. You know you want to do it. It's just a matter of getting someone to cheer you on, that person who tells you to reach a little higher, right? And so you don't hold yourself back. It's really helpful.
Great. And I guess we got a couple of minutes left, so we'll continue to take in some audience questions. Moving forward, what's, something that you'd like the audience to kind of take away from today? If they, go back and listen or anything like that, what's that one thing you would want them to take away from today?
Take stock of where you are and identify if there's somewhere else you'd like to be. I think, what do they call this? The Great Resignation period. I think, if nothing else, this is a period in our lives where a lot of us are sort of saying, is this the lifestyle that I want? Do I want to work from home? Do I want to go to the office? What is it that really speaks to my soul? And just take that moment. If you take nothing else away from this time together, is if you can just say, am I happy? Do I have joy? Am I giving what I'm supposed to give, the gifts that I know I have, back to the universe? Right? They say the richest place on the planet is the graveyard, because that's where all the unwritten books are. That's where all the unwritten songs are, and all of the unsaid I love yous are. And so if nothing else, I want you to leave your riches right here on earth with us.
I like that. I like that. Now, Casey actually just chimed in just a second ago. She asked, I have a mentor, but it doesn't seem like it's going right. My expectations are not being met. As I start my journey in finding a new mentor, what are some vetting questions I should ask?
Absolutely. What is it that you need? First of all, know what you know in terms of your ask. Be very clear about what you need so that you can have a very clear expectation. And again, ask them, how often can we meet? And when we meet, how long are we meeting? Make sure that that person has expertise in the field that you, or whatever the matter is that you need assistance with. Ensure that you yourself are willing and open to listening. When you say expectations aren't being met, are they too critical? And I say too in quotes actually, because again, that Will Smith, know that you know who you are, but also that John Maxwell kind of like, okay, I'm going to take this in. Can I take criticism? There are a lot of reasons why expectations aren't being met. And if you can, go through that solidly and then ask other people who your intention of having as a mentor are, you can evaluate really what helps. Communication style often can make a big difference, like as Susan pointed out, right? Communication style matters as well. So someone might say to me, Michelle, you look great today. And I'm like, yeah, Mom, okay. And then somebody else who might say, Michelle, you look good today. And I might be like, yes, thank you, right? So those are the things that we have to look inward about, how we screen information. And look, Kelly, if it's not working, get out and find someone who can really meet your expectations and whose expectations you also meet. Ask them what their expectations are of you.
And how do we strike that balance between, having somebody who can, help us on our journey, but not being too critical? I know some people, maybe not like, hearing criticism. Some people may not like hearing it directly. How do we strike that balance?
I don't believe in the word balance. I don't know about you. Nothing in my life is in balance. I don't know. It's literally, how do you feel when you show up to converse with this person, and how do you feel when you leave? That's the first thing. Do I feel drained and depleted? Right? Then that person's communication styles, regardless of what, there's something there that is not serving you. And so it is okay to say, every time I hang up the phone from this conversation, or every time this person leaves my space, I feel depleted. I need to actually kind of get recharged from the conversation to be able to even do the things this person is telling me I should do. That's not the person for you. I think we shy away from being emotional, but emotions matter. We're showing up and showing someone very intimate parts of our lives and businesses. So I think it's not about balance. It is about synergy. Do we connect? And if we connect, we can move forward.
And lastly, real quick, interesting question from Caroline that just came in. She asks, any recommendations for overcoming imposter syndrome?
Yes. Absolutely. Do it anyway. The research is so clear, Carolyn, that women, we get in our heads, we will not apply for any positions or go after any pitches unless we feel like we have 125% of what they're asking for. And men are down like around 60%. And, the bottom line is that just try. I don't know that there's a good answer for this. There's so much literature. And the best advice that I've received in the way I've walked my life, I don't know. Hopefully you can still see me and hear me.
Yes, you sound
okay,
good.
Great. Okay, the best thing is to have little successes. One small success to begin to build your success muscle, right? And that will help do the next thing. You don't go to the gym on day one after not having been in the gym for 2 years and try to bench press 210 pounds. You might start with 5-pound weights, right? And work your way up to 125 pounds. Success is the same way. So set a small success, a small milestone, celebrate it, and then reward yourself by doing the next thing that might be just a little bit more scary, but not as scary as the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Imposter syndrome literally gets combated as we build our success muscles.
Interesting. And we got about a minute left, so I want to thank everybody for your questions. Thank you. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all of them, but I really appreciate it. Michelle, I really appreciate you joining us as well. I want you to leave us with one thing you want everybody to take away from today.
The one thing is, even though your phone's on vibrate, make sure it's not connected to the MP3 player in your space. How about that? And really to show up for yourself. Show up for yourself. If you take nothing else away, even if you don't reach out to a mentor, mentee, or a peer, know yourself and move through life accordingly. I think that you have value and the world needs what you have. And I would love to see you express that from any perspective of your life. So if you
I apologize. I think we just lost Michelle again, but I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you again. And again, this is being recorded. So if you managed to step out or if you maybe might have missed anything or anything like that. Oh, there you are, Michelle. Lost connection for you for a second. Sorry. Keep going.
I don't know what you heard, but just know the takeaway is that even if you never make a relationship with a mentor, mentee, or peer, to know yourself and to evaluate what it is that you need and what it is that you have, I think is probably the most valuable takeaway, because often we just kind of do a lot of action. And so to have that intention and be very clear will help you as you navigate the world. I appreciate your time. And of course, my Wi-Fi and everything is going haywire today. Why not, right?
Okay, it's okay. We'll edit it and trim it. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. And I want to thank everybody again for joining us. Thank you so much. I apologize that we weren't able to get to everybody's questions, but always leave you guys one more. Again, if you want to connect with us, our LinkedIn page will be posted in the chat there in just a second. And again, this is being recorded, so if you had to step out or if there was anything you missed, please feel free to hop back on that same URL. It should be available immediately after our conversation, so you can pick back up right where you left off. But again, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, audience, for joining us, and have a good rest of your day and have a good rest of your weekend.